It's official, as multiple insiders have now reported that the New York Rangers will be signing the best defenseman in this year's free agency class. And not only that, but we're going to break down what's happening with Will Cuylle, what's happening with K'Andre Miller. There's a lot of moves still to be made and not a lot of time. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 77% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with your blue shirts, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, because this is the place to be for all your daily New York Rangers content. But Bret, let's get right into it. There's a lot of reports flying around because, of course, tomorrow free agency opens at 12 p.m. Eastern. And you can see here from Pierre LeBrun, this just happened right before we were recording, that the LA Kings are waiting to hear back from Gavrikov. They have tabled a brand new offer to Gavrikov, but by all accounts from not just LeBrun, but other insiders, Gavrikov is not really working with the Kings. It looks like it's looking more and more like he's going to hit the free agency market, the open market. And from Vince Mercogliano this morning, it's looking more and more likely like he is going to be a New York Ranger. It sounds like the Rangers are at the top of his list. He is going to sign in New York. And we also got from this article what the projected contract is going to be. And again, later in the video, stay tuned, because we're going to talk about the implications of everything. Will Cuylle remains unsigned, which is very scary heading into tomorrow. And of course, K'Andre Miller, we have no idea what's happening with that. And he can also be offer sheeted. So things are going to get a little crazy. But to touch on this again, he wouldn't go as far to say it's a done deal, Vince at least, but one person has gone as far as to say it's a done deal, and it is a $7 to $8 million deal, and it sounds like it's going to be roughly 7 years. So about the same range that we've talked about in previous videos in the last little while that has been rumored. But Bret, what's your take on this? Because it looks like it's a done deal. It looks like it's actually happening. We all kind of had an idea that this was going to happen, but it looks like it's going to become a reality as soon as the market opens tomorrow. And I feel like this has major implications for the entire team.
Oh, major implications. Sleepy Drury woke up, and what a disaster this is going to be. I mean, the Rangers are going to handicap themselves here. Will Cuylle is lingering out there. The Rangers need to get that done, and we've already seen it, that Will Cuylle is expected to get more than $3.5 million.
Yep.
Now you're going to allocate $7 to $8 million to Gavrikov, and the Rangers are in an extremely bad place right now because they're going to be one of those teams that are not good enough to win a Stanley Cup, but are not bad enough to get a high draft pick or, get a top player via the draft. They're going to be sort of stuck in the middle. So that's the place that you hate to be, because if you look at this Rangers roster, all their best players are aging stars. You have JT Miller, who I love, Vincent Trocheck, Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad. These guys are all over 30 years of age. Now you bring in Gavrikov. He's going to be slated in as one of your best players. He's going to be turning 30 years old. There's just too many aging stars on this team, and Chris Drury has had a very disappointing offseason. Just alluded to him as Sleepy Drury because the Rangers are supposed to be in on everything this offseason. They still haven't added an NHL player outside the roster, and it looks like Gavrikov will be that first domino to fall. But like I said, it's a good player. You said it earlier in the video, the best defenseman on the market. But I've said it in a lot of videos here that he is a big fish in a small pond. This class is not particularly strong. It's not the strongest free agent class we've ever seen. So he's going to get compensated from teams like the Rangers that are desperate for left-handed defensemen. And while it looks good on the surface, Darius, he is the perfect partner to pair with Adam Fox on that first line. This is not a contract that's going to age well. If the Rangers were in a position where they were a Gavrikov away from competing with the Florida Panthers seriously and making a Stanley Cup and even winning a Stanley Cup, if you get that done within the first few years of that contract, it's a great contract no matter what happens in the end, because you were able to win that Stanley Cup. Gavrikov was able to get you over the hump. But the Rangers are in a weird spot because Chris Drury has spoken about bringing in youth, bringing in that skill, not rebuilding, but bringing in that young youth. And now he's backtracking. He's bringing in more aging stars. And this is going to be a classic Drury masterpiece where we look at this deal a few years down the road and he's trying to get out from underneath because Chris Drury, and I'll probably give him a no trade clause too, Darius. I would not be surprised about that. Chris Drury loves to do that, as we've seen, and it's just I don't like the move. I like the player. I just don't like the move, Darius. I can't get excited about it despite it being a good fit.
It's a good fit, right, with the team, but like you said, it's going to age poorly, and you know it already today. Like if they sign it tomorrow at 12 p.m. right on the dot, you know that it's going to age poorly. And you said something that I think is very interesting. You said that it sounds like Gavrikov is going to be the first domino to fall, which is true because they signed all the guys, we knew were going to get signed. We didn't know what was going to happen with Will Cuylle and K'Andre Miller. The thing for me with all of this and why I look at Chris Drury right now, like, what are you doing? Is that Gavrikov was supposed to be the last domino to fall. It should have been a bunch of other guys gone first, like, figuring out what's happening with Will Cuylle. K'Andre Miller should have been traded, and Carson Soucy, who I want to get into here, and I do want to say, before we move on from Gavrikov, it sounds like it's a done deal. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but by all accounts, it's happening as soon as the market opens. But Miller is still here. Gavrikov is going to be a done deal. And if you look at what else is lingering, Carson Soucy, we haven't mentioned him yet in this episode. They don't want to offload him because his value's never been lower, but I don't think his value is going to rise any more than it already is. So you have to trade Carson Soucy. And the other interesting thing, by the way, heading into tomorrow, Carson Soucy's no trade clause in his contract converts into a 12-team no trade clause tomorrow. So it gets even harder to move him tomorrow. I don't know what Drury was doing all week, and I know there was the draft, but you couldn't have made at least one of these moves to then get things and get the ball rolling a little bit. It's absolutely insane. Now, you've talked about it in previous videos. You can keep K'Andre Miller for 1 year. Sign him to a 1-year contract extension and just cut your losses at that. Keep him on the team. And with Gavrikov, you're probably better for it. But if you take a look at the salary cap, we don't know what Miller's going to make. And again, we can talk about Gavrikov till we're blue in the face at this point. Sounds like he's going to be a Ranger. But they have $12.1 million right now. If you give 7.5, let's say, just for the sake of it, to Gavrikov, you don't have a lot. You have almost nothing left for Will Cuylle and K'Andre Miller. I have no idea where you're going to find the money to sign both of those guys. So things are getting really, really interesting. I'm getting a little scared, honestly, with what's happening right now. But Bret, what's your take on that? Like, Carson Soucy's got to be moved. You said that it's the first domino to fall. You're absolutely correct. It looks like it's going to be the first. It should have been the last.
Yeah, it's funny that you say you have no idea where the Rangers are going to get that money from. Well, the reason you don't know where they're going to get that money from is because nobody loves Carson Soucy more than Chris Drury. Chris Drury should start the Carson Soucy fan club on Instagram, on all social media platforms, because nobody loves Carson Soucy more than Chris Drury, folks. This guy should have been out of here a long time ago, and it looked like Chris Drury was doing an excellent job this offseason when he moved Chris Kreider, got the full $6.5 million off the books, brought in Carey Terrence, a nice prospect. We'll see what happens there. But things slowed down after that, Darius. The Rangers were in the rumors consistently every day, but nothing materialized.
Yep.
And I think Chris Drury needed to use that momentum after the Chris Kreider trade. The whole Mika Zibanejad situation kind of slowed things down, I'm sure. There were conflicting reports that they wanted to trade him, but he didn't want to be traded. But I think Chris Drury had an excellent opportunity to capitalize on that momentum after the Chris Kreider trade. And now what's happening, which is going to be dangerous, is there's a lot that has to be done, Darius, in a little bit of time. And that's why the Rangers have skipped from the last domino, which should have been Gavrikov, and they prioritized it to the front because they are clearly desperate to bring in this lefty defenseman. He's made it clear, even in the draft, 5 out of their 8 picks, defensemen, 3 of them were lefties. He is desperate to bring some left-handed defensemen in there. And you know what? Gavrikov knows that. I'm sure he wants to be a Ranger. Looks like a guy that likes the big stage. Played in Los Angeles. Now he's going to come to the East Coast from the West Coast, come play in New York. But he is very aware. Look, the Rangers, they have a good team. They have a good market. But I could really capitalize on their vulnerability here, which is that they need a left-handed defenseman. Not only that, but they need to protect Adam Fox, their star right defenseman. And he knows that. His agent knows that. And Chris Drury, it's really dangerous right now for the Rangers because now Will Cuylle lingers. And I have a bad feeling that they are going to let him slip away. And if you sell us on Gavrikov over Will Cuylle, there's got to be a petition to remove Chris Drury from his job because that is a bad job, a poor job from Chris Drury, and he should go back to sleep.
If that is the sell, I'm not buying. I'm not buying at all, because that, again, that would just be horrific asset management. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on, just to kind of, round up everything, because Elliot Friedman was on Spitting Chicklets this morning as well and had some insight into what's happening with Will Cuylle. And I want to touch on Will Cuylle to wrap up the episode. And Gavrikov is probably coming to the New York Rangers. That's from Friedman. From other insiders, it's a done deal, so we'll just wait and see tomorrow what it is. But he's heard that Drury has talked about having the right math, quote unquote math, to protect himself from a Cuylle offer sheet. Sign the contract, get the contract done. It doesn't matter about, stop playing with the whole offer sheet thing. I feel like people would be a lot more open to letting K'Andre Miller get offer sheeted at this point and taking that compensation than Will Cuylle. Will Cooley's like quite literally a difference maker on the entire team. So just with his attitude and the way that he plays and what he brings to a lineup. So any final thoughts on Will Cuylle? I mean, we're going to get to tomorrow. We're getting into offer sheet territory at this point. You know that if he's not signed by the Rangers, one team out there is going to offer sheet him, and then the Rangers have to match that. I don't understand why Chris Drury, unless Will Cuylle in his camp, which would go against what he said, he wants to be in New York, unless they do want to, see what's out there with offer sheets, why haven't you just signed the contract? It blows my mind. If he ends up getting offer sheet and he leaves New York, this is an absolute disaster and quite literally a fireable offense.
Yeah, I think Will Cuylle and his camp realizes that Chris Drury doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and that, they need to start talking to some other teams here. And Chris Drury is speaking about having the right math. Well, they're not going to have the right math because they refuse to trade Carson Soucy. They refuse to make a decision on K'Andre Miller. I mean, it's time to move on. You're not getting anything spectacular in return. At this point, you need to prioritize the cap space. And the reason you need to prioritize the cap space is because you need to prioritize bringing back Will Cuylle, who does not grow on trees. I keep saying it every video. A player of his size does not have that type of speed, does not have that type of ability to put the puck in the net in different ways. And also, besides that, you don't find many guys that hit the way he does and can score the way that he does. And he leads by example. He's homegrown. And I'm just telling you right now, Darius, if the Rangers sign Gavrikov and Will Cuylle slips away, I'm going to be very angry here for at least the next handful of videos, because that would be the worst, like you said, asset management I have ever seen. Yeah. Ever.
It would
cannot do that if you're Chris Drury. Cannot happen.
No, it would be absolutely horrific. And I think that one thing, we've been talking about is offer sheets, of course, and league-wide that's been a topic. And the number one offer sheet candidate was Matthew Knies, and he just signed a contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's off the board. So who's next in line? It's probably both of the New York Rangers RFAs, K'Andre Miller and Will Cuylle. And if Will Cuylle gets offer sheet and he ends up leaving New York, that is horrific asset management. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. We'll keep you updated for everything here on the channel. I do wonder if there is a contract in the works before we hit free agency tomorrow. We're going to keep you updated with everything that goes down, and of course with every signing that happens tomorrow, which I don't think there's going to be too many. It's probably just going to be Gavrikov, and then maybe they get the RFAs cleaned up or a trade happens. I don't know what's happening at this point, but I hope that Chris Drury re-signs Will Cuylle. That is for sure. Let us know how you feel in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.